All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us here at JFK, one of the busiest airports in America. We appreciate you coming together to highlight a very important issue, and that is one of airline passenger safety. This bipartisan legislation that we're here to rally for today is called the Global Aircraft Maintenance Safety Improvement Act, and it establishes a global safety standard for American aircraft repairs and removes the incentive for companies to offshore aircraft maintenance jobs. Currently, safety standards vary by country, as does the enforcement of these safety standards. I think Americans would be surprised to know that there are more than 900 FAA certified maintenance and repair stations operating outside of the United States. And we believe that those that are operating outside of the United States operate at a far lower safety standard, and they also incentivize businesses to move important American jobs overseas. These stations are located all around the globe: Singapore, Brazil, Thailand, Costa Rica, El Salvador, and there are 78 of them in communist China. Airlines have already moved more than 8,200 maintenance jobs overseas, and many jobs will return to the United States if the same safety standards were to be universally applied. The number of these facilities overseas has grown by more than 30% in the past 4 years. And over the past 20 years, the amount of maintenance being conducted at foreign facilities has risen by more than 23%. So, this legislation would create an even standard for aircraft maintenance work by establishing drug and alcohol testing for safety-sensitive personnel, background checks for workers at maintenance facilities, security threat assessments for foreign facilities, unannounced inspections for maintenance operations, and minimum qualifications for aircraft maintenance. We're proud to be joined by the Transit Worker Union that actually is rallying behind this legislation and represents those maintenance workers and understands how important this legislation is. I'd like to introduce my colleagues from Congress who are supporting this legislation. I'm proud to be a co-sponsor of it, but our prime sponsor is Mark Molinaro of Dutchess County.
Thanks, Nicole. Thank you, Nicole. It's a privilege to be here. First, I want to also acknowledge the transportation workers and the TWU collectively. This legislation, which I'm proud to have written, has been a policy initiative for the TWU for 2 decades. This has been an effort to try to establish American safety standards and to ensure American jobs. But I want to thank all of them, John Samuelson and the entire team who have worked so very hard to ultimately get the Transportation Infrastructure Committee to adopt the bill language, and I'll get that in a moment. I also want to acknowledge the men and women of the Port Authority and all those who are providing safety and security in airports across this country. As Nicole mentioned, we crafted the bill for 2 reasons. We wanted to increase American safety standards, but also grow American jobs. Not only are many of those mechanic jobs, those repair jobs in places across the globe, but 1 in 10 of those jobs are in communist China. And so this bill establishes a base safety standard, which is critically important, and as Nicole mentioned and others will say, will come as a real surprise to Americans to find out that in many cases we allow for a lesser safety standard when it comes to aircraft maintenance. That has to end. Because we've allowed this to happen, we see too many jobs that would be American jobs offshore to other parts of the globe. And again, lesser labor standards, lesser safety standards for American passengers and American workers. So as I said, this has been an effort for nearly 2 decades. I'm proud to have crafted the bill. It was adopted by the Transportation Infrastructure Committee and included in the House's FAA reauthorization bill. Now, 2 problems. The House has adopted the FAA reauthorization bill, and that language is embedded in that legislation. The United States Senate has yet to act on FAA reauthorization. And so what that means for us is the second part of this effort. We have to continue to advocate, whether it's for final inclusion in FAA reauthorization, which we think will happen when the Senate and House begin to meet, but if necessary, a standalone legislation. That's why it's necessary to have a broad array of support, whether on the Transportation Infrastructure Committee or not. And so, Nicole, thank you for bringing us together today, and we're just grateful to continue this important effort to establish greater safety standards and to bring more American jobs. And with that, I want to introduce my colleague who serves on the T&I committee from Long Island, Anthony D'Esposito.
Thank you, Mark, and it's great to be here this morning with TWU and, of course, our good friend John, and, of course, my colleagues. I am proud to serve on both the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee as well as the House Homeland Security Committee. I'm also proud to co-sponsor this legislation, and I think it's important to point out, Nicole and Mark, and I'm sure Nick will say it so eloquently, but this comes down to really three main factors that I think are important not only to me, but to Americans. While some will argue that our greatest national security threat is global warming, I think we can all agree that China, Russia, and what we've seen on our southern border creates a national security risk. This legislation provides quality national security benefits, making sure that our adversaries like China are not ensuring the quality of American aircrafts. Second, it protects union jobs. We want to make sure that there are zero incentives for maintenance facilities to be overseas. The jobs protecting American aircrafts should be right here in the United States of America. And lastly, it's aircraft safety. We want to ensure that facilities that are overseeing our aircrafts are right here in the United States so that we can make sure that the aircrafts that our loved ones ride on, fly on, are as safe as they possibly can be in the hands of Americans. So again, I want to thank Nicole for getting us here today at JFK. I want to thank TWU, and of course I want to thank the Port Authority Police Department for always keeping us safe. I want to thank Mark for sponsoring and drafting this legislation. Again, I'm proud to be a co-sponsor. And now I'd like to introduce my colleague and most importantly, my good friend from New York 1 on Long Island, Nick Malliotakis.
The outsourcing of our aviation maintenance is a terrible idea for two reasons. One, it gives away our jobs to folks overseas. The men and women behind me who work on our airplanes should have the first crack at ensuring that work is done and done right. And the second issue is it hurts our national security. The federal government spends a lot of resources ensuring our airports and our skies are safe. Fair payers, those who buy these expensive tickets, invest a lot of money to ensure their aircraft are safe, and sending those jobs overseas is counter to that important mission of keeping our skies safe. This bill, authored by my good friend Mark Molinaro, is a good step in the right direction to ensure those jobs stay here in America and our skies remain safe. Appreciate the leadership from Nicole Malliotakis and Anthony D'Esposito on this issue. I don't serve on the Transportation Committee, but I understand, serving on the Homeland Security Committee and the Armed Services Committee, that our national security is very important, and this bill helps keep America safer. I appreciate the leadership of the folks who are elected office behind me, and John Samuelson from the TWU and his leadership as well. Thanks so much. Back to Nicole.
Thank you. I'd now like to introduce someone we all know very well. He has been a fighter for our local transit workers and now has taken on a tremendous role at the federal level, representing all the transit workers across the United States of America. He is from one of the boroughs I represent, the borough of Brooklyn. Would love to introduce John Samuelson, president of TWU.
Thank you. Thanks, Nicole. And thank you to all the members of U.S. Congress who have come out to support us on this issue. So imagine bringing your family to getting on a plane and going to Disney on a vacation and then realizing that that plane was maintained by mechanics, if you want to call them that, in a foreign country that haven't gone through a criminal background check, that are not licensed, that may not even be able to read the manuals that they're given to maintain the planes that you're bringing your family to Florida on or wherever to go see your parents. on that winter vacation. Well, that's what I was exposed to when I became the president of the International Transport Workers Union. When I left TW Local 100, I am the president of the biggest airline union in the country, but I come at it from a consumer perspective, and that is the perspective. I was in shock when I realized that the planes that I was bringing my family on, my children, were likely overhauled, underwent maintenance overhaul in a foreign country. I was shocked, and that was 6 years ago. And since then, we've made it our goal to address this issue. It is the ultimate common sense issue, the ultimate common sense bipartisan issue. It's where national security meets the kind of blue-collar jobs that working communities across the United States of America are built upon. We've had flights come back into the United States of America with bricks of cocaine embedded in the plane. Bricks of cocaine, bricks of drugs, other paraphernalia. It doesn't take a great leap of the imagination to believe that that could easily be replaced by something far more heinous, particularly in light of recent events. It is absolutely insane that the U.S. government allows these companies, American Airlines, Delta, JetBlue, United, every one of them, to pursue profit over the safety of the American people. And we intend to end it. We've been fighting this fight alone, and we are happy and glad to have the support of our friends in Congress, both Republican and Democratic for that matter. We're going to keep fighting it, and we're going to keep fighting it until we win. We're going to bring these jobs back onto U.S. soil, and we're going to protect the American people. Thank you.
Are there any questions?